My name is Gina Dingman. I'm part of Quote Wizard's agent education team. We're so excited to have Seth Preuss with us today. Quick housekeeping. I will get this webinar recording to you probably by next week. So if anything happens and you have to hop out, no worries. I will keep all of this good stuff for you. We will be doing questions, so pop those in the chat. We'll snag them. Um, I will save all of the information that Seth gives us, so I'll give any contact information or links. Don't worry, I'll also send that your way. And let me get to introductions. So, Seth Preuss, he is Myvation's founder, and we are so excited to have him with us today. He is the creator of its flagship product, Racing Sale and Leaderboard Legends. He has been featured in Forbes.com, CEO Magazine, and Selling Power. He has been with us before, and I know we can all attest what a wonderful speaker he is and a great guest. So we're really excited to have him back today. And he's going to be going over independent agents commission reconciliation. So Seth, whenever you're ready to take it away.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. Hopefully, I will not disappoint. I'm connecting with you all today from sunny Nicaragua, which is a place where my family has a home. And I tell you that because there's always the outside possibility of a power outage. So that shouldn't happen, but should I blink out for a moment, I can assure you I'll be right back once the generator kicks in. But we should be good to go here. So I want to have a little fun today with this topic, because I know it's a topic that for any of you who've tuned in, it's probably a bit painful. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, And so I came up with this term of resource vampire. And I came up with this after looking in depth at the independent agency commission process. And this started several years ago. To give you just some brief background about the company before we really dive in here. Our company is called Myvation, and our flagship product is called Racing Snail. We got started about 20 years ago, and we focused for most of that time in the captive world. So we have tens of thousands of users. We have contracts with some of the largest captive carriers in the United States. We also have contracts with large healthcare providers, call centers, et cetera. So we process around 2 million transactions per day. And so I just wanted to give you an idea that we're a real company. We've been around for quite a while. We deal with a very large volume of transactions currently. But a couple of years ago, we pivoted into the independent world, and we had stayed out of the independent world for most of our existence because, frankly, we didn't think it was possible to handle the commission processing, given what the hand that you're dealt with essentially thousands of different carriers and different carrier statements, et cetera. Fortunately, with the advent of AI, that has become possible. And so what we're going to see today is a special version of Racing Snail called our Accelerator package that is designed specifically for independent agents. So there's quite a bit of additional technology that went into this. So let's talk about vampires. At first, let's just talk about vampires like as we know them from literature and from TV, movies, etc. What do we know about vampires? Well, we know that they're hidden, right? They operate in darkness. They can't even be out in the light. They have to be sneaking around and stay invisible from all of us, right? We know that when we do see them, they appear normal because they look like regular people. If anybody is a fan of the Twilight series, apparently we're supposed to believe that they are unreasonably attractive on top of that. Which is not the case when we get into the independent commission process. But we know they're really hard to kill. And that's what makes it so entertaining to see stories and movies about vampires, because they're not easy to get rid of. But the most important thing about vampires, and it's what makes them a vampire, is that when they get you, they drain your lifeblood, leaving you an empty husk, dead, essentially. So that's the metaphor that we're using. And I know it's a kind of a negative one, but we just had Halloween here a little while ago, so I think it's appropriate. How does this translate to what we see in the independent world? Well, let's look at our resource vampire. So a resource vampire is a process, client, or project that stealthily drains a business of time, money, and motivation. So time, money, motivation, that's the lifeblood of your agency. And so a resource vampire is something that comes in and drains your agency of all of those things. And that word stealthily is very important. We're going to come back to that in a moment. So let's look at this. What are the ways that this happens? Some of this may resonate with you out there. So first we have time. So you've got to manage all these portals. For anything that doesn't direct download, you've got to go download those statements. You are assigning policies every single month for all of the transactions that come in from these carrier statements. Then you're calculating commissions. Many of you are using spreadsheets or a combination of spreadsheets and other tools to come up with your commission calculations for your sub-producers. And then you got to answer questions about it all. And because of the way this process works, simply answering a question of why did I get paid X can be quite a bit of work and a real drain. Then we've got the money side of the equation. We have incorrect commissions. You can have incorrect commissions from carriers. I don't frankly see it as often from carriers as we do from aggregators or wholesalers. But occasionally that happens where they're missing, or what we often do see is a difference in understanding of what the correct commission rate is. And we also see commission shrink. So this process is so difficult that if policies cancel early or they reduce coverage and it shrinks the amount of commissionable premium, a lot of agents can't keep up with that. And so they just lose the money. So if they pay a producer out on a homeowner's policy that cancels after 6 months, they're not recouping them. And that can be pretty expensive. And then finally, on the motivation side, there's very little transparency is what we normally see. By transparency, I mean that people don't know what's going on, particularly your producers. They can't see why their paycheck is what it is. When this happens, it tends to create a lack of trust, not in the agent or the agency, but in the process itself. So anytime there's a black box and we don't know what's going on inside that black box, people don't trust it. And if they don't trust it, several of them, often your better ones that are really motivated by money, will do their own shadow accounting, we call it, where they have their own spreadsheets and they're keeping track of everything. And while that might be admirable, but it's also a waste of time. And then I'll talk about it now because I'm sure all of you have dealt this. When they do engage in that shadow accounting, I've been doing this for 20 years and I have yet to have an agency tell me that, hey, my producer was calculating commissions and noticed that they got overpaid, right? That does not ever happen. It's always that they got underpaid, which also creates all kinds of problems. So these are many of the ways that we can have the lifeblood of our agency sort of drained from us, all in an attempt to just do this, get a paycheck to our producers. And I know this may seem like sort of an administrative task, let's crunch all the numbers to get the paycheck, but this paycheck is why they come to work every day. I mean, hopefully you have hired for sales positions, people who are motivated by money and making more money. And by having such a convoluted, complicated, slow, untransparent process just to get information to them about what they're making can be a real drain on your agency. So our goal here is that when you go to pay your producers, you're paying them 100% accurately and 100% cohesively. So it's based upon absolutely everything, including changes or chargebacks or non-downloadable statements, et cetera, even if they're sending you statements in the mail. That's what we're trying to achieve. So I want to return to this idea about stealthily, though. So a process, client, or project that stealthily drains. Why do I talk about this? Because the thing about what we have encountered quite often is that agencies may not know. That's the nature of a vampire. You don't know that it's out there. It sneaks up on you. It can even exist among you without you understanding what it is. There's a couple of different ways that this can happen. One is that the agent or the principal, whoever's making the decisions, doesn't feel the pain. And that could be because they have properly delegated these responsibilities to others in the organization, but they have no idea how actually painful this is. To give you an example, I was just at a show out in California last week, and I had an agency owner come up to me and talk to me and was very interested. And he said, I don't think we're really ready now, but I could see that as we grow, we'll probably be ready. And we'll reach out and talk to you when we get to that point. About an hour later, his office manager came by. And when his office manager heard what we did, he said, we need to talk next week. You absolutely have to call me next week. This is a huge problem in our agency. That dichotomy of understanding between the two positions is very common. If you've got really good people who do a good job of solving problems, they often don't bubble up to you how bad those problems are. And so you don't know that your agency is suffering in this way because people haven't complained about it and you're not the one physically feeling the pain. One of the ways that I actually work on our own software products to help improve them is I use them. And there's nothing that gets changes made faster than when our own products make me angry. Because when I find that the product is slow or wasting my time, et cetera, I have the power to go and make that change. Whereas your people will often just deal with it. And the other is that they have a process that works, right? So we've got that taken care of. I always get a kick out of this because sometimes I'll have people say, well, yeah, no, we don't need any help with this because our accountant takes care of that. And I'm always like, oh, that's outstanding. Could I have a referral to your accountant? I've always been looking for a free accountant because last time I checked, they're pretty expensive. And they, of course, it's like, well, what do you mean? And like, well, your accountant is doing this for you. They're not doing it for free, right? I mean, it's costing you money. And so this is another way that people can become separated from this because you've done a good job of actually solving the problem. You've got to fix it. But then once again, you don't feel that pain. So it can be kind of invisible behind the scenes. So I just want you to think about that. And because if you think you got it licked, you probably want to talk to the people who are actually doing this process in your office to find out if that's actually true. So here, we're done talking about vampires now. So what's the root of the problem here? So the root of the problem is that the data that we need to pay commissions is generally contained in that column here in the middle. You may need less than all of those, but generally that's what you need. Of course, the problem is that this data is split between two different places. This becomes particularly acute for agencies that are doing a lot of ENS, policies that are not direct download. It seems to be once an agency hits about 20% of the policies that are not direct download, this gets really, really painful. So we've got to connect these things. And we're trying to connect things from 3,000. I think that number is actually correct. There's about 3,000 different carriers in the insurance industry between P&C and life and health. All of them with different formats for their statements, but not only different formats, but using different terms to mean the same thing, or using the same terms to mean different things. And this is what has made it so incredibly possible for traditional software to assist in this, because software needs to know the right answers, traditional software, whereas AI is able to deduce things. And so by making deductions through AI, we're actually able to bring all of this data together into one data set inside the system in which we calculate commissions. So we take some of the data from your AMS, and we match it with some of the critical data from your carrier statements, from the actual original carrier statements, the source of truth, bring it together, and then we're able to run commissions. And once we do this, this of course happens automatically. So it's extremely, extremely fast. So at this point, I'm going to shift gears here, and we are going to, I will show you the application itself. And I would like some feedback. Do you see the new screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is our dashboard. Lots of cool stuff going on here, but we're going to swing back to this towards the end. What I'd like to do first is dive right into how this tool works, because I know that's what all of you would like to know. So here we see our transactions ledger. So this is a collection of all of the transactions that we've processed from any carriers that you work with. So the way that our company works is that we actually handle all of the statement downloads and statement management for you. So we use a password sharing account called OnePass, and we're actually able to get access into all the carrier portals and download those each month so that you don't have to do that anymore. Once we do that, we run them through our AI system, and then we match it with data from your AMS. So things like the customer name would come from your AMS. We use the identifier, which is usually the policy number, to merge this stuff together. The sold by would critically come from your AMS, meaning that we're taking new statements and automatically inserting the sold by into that statement so that you don't have to do that anymore. It's automated. But then we take critical business like the commissionable premium directly from the carrier statement. So we don't replicate carrier commission tables. There's systems out there that say where you have to enter how much you make from a particular carrier. We don't do that. We just go straight to the information from the carrier statement itself. So this agency commission rate here is pulled from the statement. This could be a decimal, it could be a percentage, it could be a word, it's whatever they put on that statement. But the purpose of that is to show you, this is what the carrier says that you're getting paid for this particular transaction. Then we pull the agency commission directly from the statement, and then we calculate what that rate is. So we tell you, okay, you're getting paid 10%. And then you can quickly validate, is that what I'm supposed to get paid? So if we look down here, we can see this, they're saying 0.10, that's 10%. We're calculating and showing 9.5%. Why? Are there some agency fees involved? Is there something else going on in there? But what we're showing is that it's not 10%, which is what they said. And we find this from time to time, especially with aggregators, where there can be mistakes on the contracted amounts between the aggregator and the agent, and then they're able to work that out, but you're able to see it very, very quickly. And then, of course, we calculate the compensation, the commissions for your sub-producers, and then we can show you even where it's from. But let's say that we don't understand. We still don't get it. We're like, okay, I don't understand why this is what it is. So I could just click here, and this will bring you to a digitally stored copy of the original statement. So from every transaction in the system, you are one click away from the original statement. So if there's additional context on here, fees or deductions or additions, something like that, you can immediately see what that is. And of course, these can be edited so that you can make adjustments as necessary, which isn't normally necessary, but we like you to have all of the information. We need you to have all the information because, as I mentioned before, we process over 2 million of these transactions per day. If our clients had questions about even a fraction of that number of transactions, there's no way that we could keep up. So our goal is that you have all of the information here, and if you don't understand it at that point, you'd be calling the carrier or you'd be calling the aggregator rather than us. That's kind of what our goal is. So once we have all of this information, then we can start making use of it. But first, I want to show you our statement library. So this is where we store all of the statements that we download and process for you. So this is searchable, sortable, filterable. Basically you could look for whatever you'd like. And we give you some data on each of these right up front. You can mark whether you've reviewed it or not. There's a couple of cool things that you can see. So we can actually click and see how many total transactions there are. What is the total of those transactions? But we can also, if we click on this transaction count here, it'll take us to a filter now of all of the transactions from that particular statement. So here we can see $2,367.46 in agency commissions that were due to that particular statement. So not only do we have access from all transactions to the statement, but we have access from all the statements directly to the transactions. And so I'll talk about this now because I tend to forget about it, but this is for this reason, we have a lot of agents that come to us who are interested in potentially selling their book someday or buying books from other agencies. Because once our system is populated with all of the transactions, for the course of a year, you can get extraordinarily accurate, down to the penny details on your commission revenue. So somebody buying your book can come into the system and quickly audit it. It takes very, very little time because they can literally see every single transaction from every carrier that you work with that year. And we have other agents that use this who will buy an agency and then run all the statements for the previous year through it so that they can verify that they're buying the commission revenue stream that they think they are. So I just want to point that out. So we also display this in a table format. So this is a lot for my company's benefit so that we can see what we have downloaded and what we haven't, but you can also see this as well. So you can quickly see which statements are maybe remaining to download in a particular month. This is all test data. I should have pointed that out at the beginning. So if you see anything that's a little weird, that's what it would be. So that's where we have all our statements. But once we have the commission data, then we can pay it out. And this is pretty simple. It's kind of what you'd expect to see here. So we see all of our producers, how much have they earned? We can make adjustments here if we choose to. What's the total amount, including those adjustments? What are we actually going to pay? And what have we paid out year to date? So from here, though, we can then go say, well, I don't understand 981. He usually, makes more than that. What's the deal? So I click, and now it's distilled to all of the transactions with all of the relevant details so that I can quickly understand exactly why it is that Ryan is getting paid what he is for this particular pay period. And of course, I'm one click away from the digitally stored copy of the commission statement from the carrier statement. So if I do have questions of why a particular transaction is what it is, I'm just, half a second away from being able to see the original source. So that's what an agent or an office manager who's paying out staff can see. It's very concise. It's very comprehensive. You have 100% of the data. This includes all transactions. So not just new, not just renewal, but changes, endorsements, cancellations. We also are able to calculate if a policy is new or renewal. So you can pay differently based on new policies, pay different based on renewal, but our system will know what you paid out on originally. So if a policy cancels during a renewal status, we know to charge back at a prorated amount for the renewal commission rate that you pay. Whereas if it's new, then we would charge back at the new rate that you pay. So that's the sort of thing that can get kind of complicated when you're trying to do this on your own and in spreadsheets, et cetera. But we can handle all of that automatically. But the key thing that I want you to see here is that we also show this data to your producers. So in this case, Amy can come in and she can look at any time period here, and it'll show what comp plan she was on, and then it'll show her comp totals. And this will go throughout the month. So as we're processing statements and running these calculations, this will start to populate. So she could see she's made $1,104 here. I'm going to talk about this left on the table here in just a moment. And then she can see all of the details of the transaction. So this is a really big deal. Your producers love to see this. And I always tell people, agents really like using Racing Snail, but the producers absolutely love it. Because this, once again, these are the details that go into making that paycheck. And they like to verify that everything is in here and everything's correct. It's up to you because this is entirely configurable, but if you so choose, you can give them access to click here and see the original statement as well. It depends on what kind of agency you're in. We also offer this same service to aggregators for their retail agents. In that case, you probably don't want that, in which case we can block that column and restrict it so they only see exactly what you're comfortable seeing. However, when you are able to display this for them, it means they don't usually have to ask you very many questions. And so agencies that start using this will find that the volume of work that they're doing hunting down information to answer questions for sub-producers goes down quite dramatically because it's all right here. As I kind of joked about earlier, producers will almost always overestimate what it is that they're supposed to be getting paid because they're overestimating how much the agent got paid. And since they're usually getting a percentage of the agency commission, they need to see that you didn't make what they thought you did, and therefore they are getting paid. So that makes a big difference. So I want to talk about this left on the table here. So let me go back for a second. You'll notice I've got this $500 here with this lock next to it. And that is from our consistency bonus. So we, in the captive world, processing commissions, like getting the commission data is not very hard. It's one source or it's manual entry. It's not coming from all these different places like it is in the independent world. So we invested most of our time into figuring out how to drive agency performance. So Racing Snail agents on the captive world outproduce agents. They literally write more policies than agents that don't use our software. And that's because we built a lot of motivational triggers into the system. Some of those work for the independents, some do not, depending upon where the data comes in from. But the consistency is one of many that we have in the system that I like to show because it's very easy to understand. So what we've said here is that, hey, there's $500 for you, but we need to see these two things. We need to see a minimum of $4,500 in agency commission earned. And we can say they got that. It's green. They're above the requirement. But we need to see from the office a total of $30,000 in agency commissions earned during this period. We're behind. Now, I won't bore you with the details, and it's a different presentation that we do, but we can actually show mathematically how much an agency's production changes when they have team-based compensation. You suddenly have producers that will step up and help other producers because now their success depends on what somebody else does. So agencies that set up these kinds of consistency bonuses will have higher production. You don't have to use it. It's just in there. It's one of the things that you can use. But it's very easy. They don't need to come to you to check on this because they can see where it is right here and decide what they're going to do. You could do it just based on individual performance. You could do it just based upon agency performance. You could add other requirements in here, like the number of quotes that they get or the number of a particular type of activity. It's very, very flexible. I just like to show it to you so you understand it's there. And in this case, they would get $500 if they hit these requirements. You could also set another threshold that said if they hit higher requirements, they get $600. If they do it again, they get $700, et cetera. So it's very, very flexible. And then whenever they hit a threshold, we immediately roll up to the next threshold and say, okay, now this is what you're leaving on the table by not hitting these next thresholds. So we always have that proverbial carrot out in front of them. And that carrot actually shows up on almost every page in the system. Like taunting them like, hey, I could be earned, I could be earned. And it encourages them to go look and see how they could earn it. So in addition to them seeing the individual transactions that they have, but we also want them to be able to do some self-coaching and analytics. And so here a producer can see, how much have they sold on the year? So in this case, Amy's sold $14,000 on the year. She can look at it by whether that's new business or renewal. For those of you who have producers where you're wanting to see both, what you don't want to see is that they start resting on their laurels on the renewal side. You want to see that they're producing new business as well. And these can all be manipulated so that they can see what they look like over time. They can spot trends. What happened there in May? Maybe she was sick or out on a longer leave, et cetera. But it's basically to give them information about their own performance so that it will impact their behavior. I mean, commissions are all about behavior. The reason we pay commissions is to get them to do things. The idea behind it is that the more they care about those commissions, the more they will do. The more commissions they earn, the more commissions that we make. And so this enables them to be self-managers in that regard, but it also gives you a peek into their performance as well. So we, of course, bring this same sophistication to the agencies as well. So now we're looking at this from an overall agency perspective, and we can see what are the agency commissions earned to date. We can look at it, over a period of time. We can see who in the office is producing what types of, some of this may not apply. Some agents care about different things, but we can see, whether it's new or renewal. We can see the different types of policies, even where they've been sold, the source of business, if you're tracking that, and then critically, like what companies are you writing for? All these can be manipulated so that you can see them, both as a pie chart here or as a graph over time to look at trends. So the next piece that I'm going to show you here, you do not need to use this. But the reason I talk about it is because, once again, we spend a lot of our time trying to figure out how to get producers to sell more, how to get agencies to grow bigger. And this piece that I'm about to show you is the single most impactful part of what we call our magic formula. And our magic formula is made up of various components in the system that we know combined will produce dramatically higher performance. It's based on an analysis of over 20,000 insurance producers. And this next piece is this, as I mentioned, is the single most impactful part. It's very simple. And hear me out before you start making decisions about it. Okay. So if at the end you determine that you don't like it, that's great, but just hear me out. So this is a configurable activity tracker. So you can track activities based on a day, based on a week, based on a month. These are just examples. You could have as many or as few as you want. You can see we can also do this for quotes. Depending upon the environment that we're operating in, sometimes this information comes in digitally from another system. Sometimes it's just click the button and it updates, or you can update in bulk as well. But as they're going through, these colors change from red to yellow to green to give them feedback on how they're doing on their activities. And then we give them a message at the end congratulating them, et cetera. So on our magic formula, this piece right here, agencies that use this have 30% higher performance than those that don't. Okay. You don't have to use it. And some people say, my people are professionals. They don't need to be micromanaged. Okay. So I don't recommend that anybody uses this as a micromanagement tool. What it is it's a success roadmap. And so if you think about how many policies, ultimately, how much money do they want to make? And in order to make that money, how many policies do they need to sell? Well, in insurance, you don't just sell policies, right? You got to make phone calls. Like I have a mathematical formula that I used to know when I sold Kirby vacuum cleaners. We knew exactly how many doors we had to knock to talk to X number of people to get X number of demonstrations to sell one Kirby. And then you just did the math backwards. And that was our success roadmap. But we have that same success roadmap in insurance. It's going to be different for every person in every office. But when you know what it is, then you can focus on it and you can make sure that you get it done. So I have an insurance agency as well. I test all these concepts in my own agency before we roll them out. When I first rolled this out, I sat down with my office manager and I said, what do you think? Like, what do you want to do every day? What do you think you need to do to be successful? I didn't dictate to her, do this, do this, do this, do this. We can do that if you want, but I chose to do it the other. And so she came to me about 2 months afterwards and she said, I wasn't really sure if I wasn't crazy. She told me that. I wasn't real crazy, but after using it, I'm making more money. Because as she's a producing office manager. So for her, it's very easy for her to get distracted by admin stuff, right? And not make those phone calls for appointments to run policy reviews, etc. And so something like this, it's just a matter of keeping you focused. I mean, some of your best athletes in the world have their own trackers that they're using, keeping track of the calories they eat, how much they bench press, how fast they run, etc. If people at the highest level of physical performance, true professionals, are keeping track of the details like this, it makes sense to me that really highly skilled professional sales reps would do the same thing. So I know I get long-winded about this, but I do because we know that we can see the results and it works. It's part of the system. You don't need to use it. But it is there for those who would like to. Many use this for their service people. You can pay based on this. So you can pay based on activities. And so then you could have, paying people for getting Google reviews, setting up policy reviews, all that kind of getting referrals, et cetera. You could pay out on this sort of thing too. So some people will use this as a way to include their service staff in the success of the agency as well. All right, so we return to our dashboard here, and I want to show you real quickly at the top right here, we see a paycheck that displays what they're currently on track to make. So this is what the system has processed so far throughout the month as we're going through those statements and running them through. This is going to count up and up. They love it. Years ago, we tried to get rid of it for some reason, and there was an absolute outrage, just an uproar from all of our clients when we tried to get rid of this check. So the producers really like it. And then, as I mentioned before, we've got this $500 that's locked up here and left on the table, letting them know that, hey, there's a way to make more money. And then they can go, they don't have to ask you, they can go look at their comp plan to figure out what that is. At the top here, we see this very goal-centric. We're going to be making some changes to this for independent agencies over the next year. But right now, the way this works is it shows you of all the goals you have set in the system, are you on time? So these colors are smart. They know how much time is available to you. And then with a couple of clicks here, we can say, okay, all right, we're fine on production. We're slipping on quotes. Activities really not doing well. What's the problem? Because we know if we don't do these activities, eventually it's going to show up on the right over there for production. So we click in activities. Okay, so here's the activities we're doing. All right, we're not getting enough reviews. We're not getting enough appointments set. What's going on here? One more click, we can see exactly who is assigned to that and how they're doing. And this sets us up for the opportunity to have a conversation with a person and solve this before it manifests itself as a problem on the sales side. So we're not so reactive. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive and control the future rather than complaining about the past. And then we've got, some charts and graphs here to give you an idea of what's going on and help you keep your finger on a pulse of the agency. So at this point, this wraps up what I show on the product itself. And we're going to open it up for questions here in just a second. Before I do that, I want to return to our presentation so that I can kind of summarize, because I know that I spoke quickly and went through some of these concepts pretty quick. So how does this whole thing work? Okay. So we load all the statements for you. That you are completely getting rid of that part of the process. Okay. So this is turned over to us. Once we load those statements, our AI runs through it, figures out how to match the data from the carrier statement to your, we extract the transactions from the carrier statements, and then we merge it from statement data with your AMS data, which then enables us to automatically assign your sales reps, because those sales reps are stored in your AMS, and then we can actually get that connected with the data from the statement. Then we calculate all the commissions according to your unique commission plan. As I mentioned, you can play based on new, based on renewal, based on, there's a whole variety of things that you can do. It's extremely sophisticated. And we work with you to set up commission plans the way that you want them to work in your agency. Then we create digital statements so that you've got access to 100% of the information that you need to understand why the system is calculating what it's calculating. We create a commission report, enabling you to produce the numbers that you can then send on to your accountant to do your payroll. We generate performance reports so that you can keep your finger on the pulse of your agency. What do you do? So what you do is you log in, you validate, and you pay. That's what we're striving for here. Now, I want to go back to that validate. When you first start using the system, there is some work to do on getting the system up and running, and it's largely going to come down to how clean your AMS data is. So to give you an example, we dealt with a case once where someone had a producer where they were entering policies into the AMS, and they were using, for the policy number, they were using QWERTY, where you just hit the keyboard, the first four letters. And they were doing that for every policy. So they had hundreds of policies with QWERTY as the policy number. Well, there is not yet a system smart enough to figure that out. That's the sort of thing that you'd have to go in and fix that data. The thing is, once you've fixed it, then the system remembers that forever. And so when it sees new transactions for that, it processes automatically. So even if you had a policy number that was incorrect, and I'm not telling you to do this, but even if you had one that was incorrect in your AMS and you told the system, hey, those are the same things, it would actually remember that even though it's wrong and match it up every time thereafter. So the validation process when you first get started is a little bit longer than when you've been using the system for a while. It's faster and faster. To give you an idea, we had one of our clients, I think she was did a lot of life and health. She was processing around 2,000 transactions per month by hand. And if you know anything about how health and life can pay out, health especially, you could be running monthly commissions and doing assignments for your producers where your commission is like 30 cents and you're paying them out like 15 cents. So you can imagine how frustrating that is for somebody to do 2,000 transactions for like 15 cents for a lot of them. It's a huge waste of time. It took her office 2 weeks, 80 hours to go through that process every month. Now, obviously, there's higher commissions than just 30 cents in a lot of these, they're making money. But after using our system, it's under 2 hours. So you will see commission processing times increase quite rapidly through this as you get it dialed in. So why I would encourage you to schedule a demo. Okay, I have a couple of reasons here because we've kind of scratched the surface here. And some of you probably have an idea that this might work for you. It might not. And there's always reluctance in talking to salespeople, which I completely understand because they're trying to get you to spend money. So I want to put your mind at ease on why it's worth setting up time to schedule a demo with us where we can walk through this again with you, asking you questions specifically about your agency so that we can get a really good understanding. There's 4 reasons for this. 1, we don't do contracts. Okay, so you don't have to worry about being pressured into something that has you on the hook for a year or longer and spending lots of money. If we've all been through that. We have really never done contracts in our history. Largely because we operate very much on referrals. That's where most of our business has grown from. And you don't tend to get great referrals if you stick it to somebody on a contract when the system isn't working for them. Number 2, we have a 90-day risk-free money-back guarantee. So at the end of 90 days, if this is not working for you, then we'll give you your setup fee back and any monthly fees that you've paid us, 100%. So I'm not going to diminish the value of your time because that still does matter. But you do know that financially you're not at risk. And so you can be comfortable. We have had somebody take advantage of this before. We had somebody who, and I should have mentioned this before, so I apologize, but when we do the commission processing for the statements, we need to have at least 4 days to be able to guarantee that we can run those statements through because we could, at any moment, a carrier can change the format of a carrier statement, and then suddenly our AI doesn't understand it anymore, et cetera. You understand how this works. Normally it goes pretty fast, but we need to have a little buffer. Well, we didn't have that rule when we first got started, and we had an agent that wanted to be able to process 60% of their commissions within 12 hours of paying it out. So they would get it and they would want us to immediately turn around 12 hours. We could not commit to that. There's no way that we could guarantee that that would work. For whatever reason, they weren't willing to push the payments out by a month. And so we agreed that we would part company, and they weren't unhappy. We weren't unhappy. But I want you to know that it's very, very important for us to work together. So we won't work with you if we can't help you. So as we go through this, if you tell us stuff, because if you're an agency that's paying commissions out on Excel, and I love Excel, I built the first version of this product in Excel. It was one of the most sophisticated Excel documents that had thousands of people on it all over the country. I'm very good at Excel. I think it's one of the best applications of all time. The problem with Excel is that you can make it do almost whatever you want, and software won't work that way. So it is possible that you could have a commission plan where we tell you point blank, we can't do that. And we'll show you what we can do. And then you make a decision on whether you can live with that or not. I will tell you that that's rare on the independent side. It's much more common on the captive side, where they come up with, frankly, ridiculous compensation plans that we have to oftentimes try to talk them out of. But we're going to tell you up front if we can work with you or not. And then finally, you're going to save a lot of time. So this is where I go back to that vampire concept. You really have to take a look at like how is your system working today? You may have it dialed in, but is it outrageously expensive in terms of the manual labor that's going into it? Do your people hate it? That's a big part of the problem. I can always tell when I'm at a trade show if somebody does the commission processing. Because if I ask if they do the commission processing, like their expression changes immediately. If they don't, they're like, oh, no. And if they do, their head just drops in agony. So that's something to consider, that you could have people who are doing this that absolutely hate it. Ironically, when we first got started in doing this, and it was, it's a new thing, and so you're trying to get the word out there. Many of our most vocal advocates were in agencies where it was a husband and wife team, and one of them was the agent and one of them was the office manager. And whichever one was the office manager that had to do the commission processing would insist that they switch over to our product. Whereas the one who didn't have to do it, and that works well in a marriage, because a married person's not going to hesitate to tell their spouse, I don't like doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. Whereas an employee was going to be a little bit more reluctant. So at this point, I want to open it up for any questions that you have.
We do have a question in the chat from Keith. It says, can you speak to the protection of our clients' data going to AI?
Yeah, so we have it's not a public AI. So we're not using it's not like an LLM, like one of these large language models. It's a contained environment. We are SOC 2 Type 2 certified. I don't know if that means anything to you, but like the insurance companies that we work with have the highest security standards that would match a bank. It costs us actually a tremendous amount of money to maintain that security designation every year. And then we have, and you could tell that I'm just repeating stuff that I don't understand, so you'll have to forgive me, but it's encrypted both there and back, and then resting, like when it's resting, it's encrypted. When it's moving, it's encrypted. And so I can definitely get you more concrete answers on this from people who are better equipped to talk about it. But I just wanted to put your mind at ease that we have very, very large companies that are comfortable with working with us because of those security protections that we have. And in the insurance industry, I mean, it's a massive. Other questions? Okay. Well, you can, I know that, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Just one in the chat. How does this work with policy info in TAM or Epic?
That's an excellent question. So it depends on how you're using those systems currently. So if you need information written back into Epic, on a policy by policy basis, we're going to have a problem with that. And it's not just us, it's any company, because they don't allow anybody to do it. But if you don't need that commission data written back into the system, then we do a book of business download. I will apologize. I'm not 100% sure about every AMS that we work with. I know we work with tons of them, and that part of it is not normally a problem. But I do want to be clear that if you need that policy level right back, that is not something that we or any other company can do. And I know people don't necessarily like to ask questions in public too. So you've got my contact information on there as well. So you can shoot me text, phone call. I think my phone number's on there, et cetera. Faith is on the call with me as well. She's our sales rep. And so for any of you who's scheduled, it would be likely to be either with her or with me. And then we'll go through this with you, get all of your questions answered. As a sales team, if we cannot answer your questions, then what we do is we set you up with a follow-up with our client success team that are the brainiacs that get into the nitty-gritty. And that's how far we'll go before we send you over a purchase, like to make sure that this works.
Another question in the chat from Heath. Is there a minimum number of producers where you see this not being cost effective?
That's a great question. And we have these discussions and we're like, we don't think it'll be worth it if they have less than 2. And then we have several agents that just use it for themselves just because they want accurate commission data on the agency. And so, I mean, I have my opinion about it, but my opinion has not been with upheld in the market. I mean, we do have, if you have a very small agency, 2 or under, then we do have like a micro agency pricing plan that we'll work with on you, because I'm an agent too. I have common sense. And so when I'm talking to an agent and I look at their situation and how they're doing things, I look at what the product costs, what their potential savings are, and I can make a decision of like, hey, is it going to work for you, or let's do this and see if we can get this to work for you. We're pretty flexible.
Okay, I don't see any more coming in.
All right. Well, yeah, like I said,
Great
feel
job.
free to reach out. What's that?
I said, I think it's because you did just such a good job. You answered everything.
Well, let's hope. But yeah, hopefully I will speak with more of you or Faith in the future. And like I said, for the agents that use this, it's kind of a game changer. If you looked at this whole thing and you shrugged your shoulders, probably don't need us. But if you're seeing, you know, that this could make your life a lot easier, then I highly recommend that you reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming in today. Thank you so much to Seth, and thank you so much, Faith. Again, I will also be sending all this information, but get that QR code, take a picture of all of that info. I hope everyone has a really great day. So thanks so much again.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Guys.
Bye-bye.